What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online video. We're going to be talking about trading in this one, and trading is probably one of my biggest activities in EVE nowadays. Pretty much any mining and any industry I do is pretty much for video focus for the channel. But I want to start kind of showing a little bit more of my trading methodology and stuff. So with all that being said, we're going to cover some of the principles that I try to live by when it comes to trading. And we basically want to make good decisions, right? And one of the biggest things about trading is patience. Patience is very, very important. The first topic we're going to talk about is what should you be trading, what items, and this is something I get asked a lot. And generally speaking, my rule of thumb here is I try to trade things that are inherently useful for my gameplay loop. So I'm really big into industry, mining, PI, all those things. So the items I'm looking at are things like materials, raw materials, gases, and things like that. That way, if there's something that happens where I can't maybe sell for a profit some items, I have the option to have that inventory, that stock, fall back on my gameplay loop, and I can transform that into something that's profitable through industry or whatever. So if you're a PvPer, maybe investing in ship hulls that you commonly use or you commonly see used is a good idea. That way, if you have a lot of stock you can't get rid of, you can potentially get some use out of them. So for instance, I don't PvP, but if I was investing in PvP type hulls and modules and things like that, I wouldn't get a whole lot of use out of that inventory if I had to do something with it, transform it in some way to make a little bit more profit. So it really is up to you. I know it's not super definitive. Like I'm not going to sit there and be like, hey, you should go trade this one thing, because if you just focus on one thing and everything, then the margins aren't going to be that great. So diversification is great too. So I'm always looking at getting like all types of gas, all types of moon goo, materials, PI, everything. Like I want as many different items as possible, because the market can change in one sector or another. So I always want to better my chances of being able to realize profits by having a bunch of different things. I very much treat items and the quantity of items like stocks, like items like stock, quantity like shares, when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like silicates right now, pretty flat line, but we have it down to like, but if you look at it overall, silicates is actually in a pretty good spot right now. And that's one thing you need to look at, like where is what the current price is, where is that in the grand scheme of things over the course of like 52 weeks or so, and everything. And you see it's been steadily going down over the past 52 weeks, but it could trend up. That just depends on things like patch notes or new things that could come into the game. I suspect that Legion coming out will increase moon goo prices and Morphite and stuff across the board, because everybody's gonna be trying to build the new Marauder and things like that. And that's speculative trading, right? That's something you can, like, if you have a good idea about like how a patch note or something can change the game, then you can speculate and buy into certain item types and potentially have a pretty good payday and everything like that. The next question we're going to cover is how much should you invest? Now, this is going to be very, very much dependent on like your current situation too. I usually recommend investing 10 to 25% of your total net worth. So those numbers can look a lot different. If you're just starting off, 10%, it could be a few million. Or if you've been playing for a long time, 10% could be 10 or more billion, right? It all depends. So normally I try to, it's about 75% of everything that I get coming into my wallet goes into Plex and it's held there. The other 25% I will use either for operational costs for making videos and stuff like that, but or 10% into trading. Now I have a trading alt, so this alt here just sits in Jita and just does buying all day, buying and selling all day. Some days I log in, some days I don't. It just really depends on what the market does. But when you first start trading, you're gonna be acquiring a lot, so you still want to kind of like still work while you're starting up, because you got to build that inventory. You got to like slowly build a stock of things that you can then potentially in the future realize on sales. So for instance, the more different things I have in inventory, the better chance I have when the market shifts to sell some of that stuff and realize. I never keep anything in raw ISK form. I try not to. As you can see, this character right here has like 490k in raw ISK. I try not to hold in raw ISK because raw ISK doesn't doesn't have a interest rate or anything like that. So I try to use up every ounce of ISK that this tune is given, and I put it into the form of inventory and things, because like those items actually will increase in value. All right, the next thing we're going to tackle is what you should be doing in terms of like how should you be acquiring or selling items, whether it should be buy orders or sell orders. There's a couple of different distinctions here, and a lot of it comes down to the price. That I've seen some items that are that can be really close in their value as opposed to like buy orders and sell orders. So like right here, silicates is 426 per unit on buy orders, and it's 461 on sell orders. So for this item, I would still definitely use buy orders. The thing to realize is buy orders, you'll be paying a broker fee when you place them. Now, if I buy an item from a sell order, I'm not going to pay anything. I'm not going to pay sales tax or a broker's fee or anything. So normally, if I come in here and I see that these are pretty much close, and there's been some items that I've looked at where the sell order can actually be lower than the buy order, I will 100% just go ahead and buy it on the sell order and already have that in inventory. But in most cases, in everyday practice, pretty much all of the things you're going to be acquiring are going to be through buy orders and everything. I try not to put too many buy orders out. I might put buy orders out for like maybe 5 to 10 different items. I'll let all those fill before I add more. That way I can kind of better keep track of competition, because when you put stuff out here, other people are going to respond and try to put their buy orders above you. And it all comes down to quantity too. So if I really want to increase my chances of actually acquiring something through a buy order, I need to have a competitive price and I need to have a competitive quantity. So when people come in here from dropping stuff from nullsec, they're selling things in bulk. If they're selling that stuff as instant, then if I have a higher quantity on my buy order, I have a better chance of grabbing all of that, even if I'm further down the list and everything. Now here's the next question is when to buy. When should you be buying items? Usually I try to track 52-week lows. So what that means is, like, you come over to the graph, you can see right now we are at a pretty substantial low here on silicates. So right now silicates would be a buy right now. I'd be buying as much as I possibly can, and potentially like other types of moon goo as well. So like gases and stuff like that are, all of moon goo is pretty much down like that. Cobalt is in a pretty good spot now too. Anytime I look across this graph here and I see the current price, lower than anything else on the graph, I'm going to usually try to acquire. Like I said, if you're investing in things that you can use outside of trading, even if you don't end up selling this stuff, you can still find use for it, transform it into something, and make a profit on it. So normally I'll hold it until it reaches a competitive price. That also brings me, we'll talk about like price tracking and stuff like that, and how you can project profits. But every time you buy something, you want to try to like record what the unit price was that you bought it at, so you can have a better idea of like where the current market is. You can compare that and see kind of where the price has gone since you purchased it. And then obviously when to sell, right? When to sell would be like the inverse of that. So if you are tracking your cost in like a spreadsheet, so normally I'd be like item name and then the price per unit that I bought at, the quantity that I have, current price, and then I would do the math and figure out what my profit margins would be. And that's a really simple way to kind of project profits and everything. And it really is about being patient, right? Sometimes you might hold items for a month. Sometimes you might hold items for 3 months. It all depends on like, how patient you are. And the more patient you are about trading, the better and more sustainable it will be for you. Real quick, we're going to touch on Plex and ISK. Like I've already said earlier in the video, I try to hold a lot of my net worth in Plex because it does ride the market. It can go up and down in value. Raw ISK, I usually don't try to hold that in large amounts, because it's just, if you have $1 billion in your wallet now, that same $1 billion in a year from now is going to buy less because of inflation. So we try not to hold anything in liquid. So that's why this trade character has very little ISK on them right now, but we have a lot of things. We have like 400 million or so in inventory right now. And this trade alt is one of the newer ones. I usually run like 1 or 2 trade alts, depending, but yeah, just try not to hold raw ISK, because that's not going to grow your ISK over time and things like that. But and also, like I said about tracking costs, it's very important, because if now I'm a little more cowboy about it. I only buy items that are below their 52-week low, and so then I only sell things that are above their 52-week high. So I really don't track cost or broker fees or sales tax or anything like that. I always buy items that are, the 52-week low, and I only sell a 52-week high, and then I just let trust the math and just let it go. But like I said, you can do a spreadsheet that tracks the name of the item, the quantity, the per unit price that you bought in at, the current price you can pull from ESI, and then you can do all that math to figure out if you sold right now that stock, what you would go up. But it really depends on how much you want to micromanage all of that as well. And that also goes into like projecting profits and stuff like that. And once you have like a system in place, once you've kind of figured out your methodology and like your personal system of trading, it's all about repetition, right? It's all about, when you first start, it's about buying. And then when the market starts to shift over 30, 60, 90, 120 days, you start looking at items that you have in inventory, and you start selling those that are higher than when you bought them, obviously. And then the profits you make, the ISK you make from that trade, you then just continue and buy more and sell more. And eventually you'll be, when you first start off, you might be dealing with a couple million in trading. But then if you're successful and it's sustainable and you've built yourself a trading machine, so to speak, then you can get to where you're pulling the trigger on 10 billion trades or buy orders or sell orders or 100 billion, and those numbers just keep going up, because the main bit of leverage in trading is capital. So we always want to be growing our capital. So when you first start off, a million or 100 million is going to only make you a little bit, but down the road, if you're diligent and you're now trading 100 billion or more, then it's become a lot more sustainable. And that's the kind of trading that can actually change your gameplay lifestyle and stuff. But you got to get there, right? You got to get your system in place and just be diligent. Buy things that are reliable. That's another thing I'll say too, is like I try to only target items that have high market volume. So normally I'm only looking at items in my categories that are doing like 1 million daily average volume, right? Because I want an item that's always moving. It's always being sold. It's always being bought. So when I go in and try to grab a position, then I know I can fill that order pretty quick. And then when I'm ready to get rid of it, I know I can fill that order really quick. Very niche items, very high value, low volume items are great. But if the volume is low, it doesn't matter if you own like 1 million or 1 billion units of a thing, regardless of price. If it's not moving on the market, then you're kind of stuck with that inventory. So I try to just stick to high volume items, and try to stay away from like those really nice but very niche, rare items, so to speak. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Really kind of down and dirty kind of situation. I wanted to just kind of explain like my thought process when it comes to trading. I might do a series over this where I start with a character that has 0 ISK, and we kind of just go through this process over like the course of 6 months to a year, and you can really see it in practice. I don't know how I want to structure that, or if that's even interesting. But it's pretty much what I do every day. Like I sit here in Jita and I will trade, buy, sell things all day. And then I go to my nullsec side and do videos like for mining and industry and all that good stuff. But I would say trading in Jita is probably the number one thing that I do now. And it's probably the one thing I get the most enjoyment out of. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, head over to Patreon where we have spreadsheets and some of the other tools that I use for Eve. And if you want to support the channel, become a member over there. It's a great thing to do over there. And also, if you're going to go and buy some Plex, or you're going to buy some stuff on the Eve Online store, use creator code JCleet, and that will help support the channel as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.